good morning and welcome to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I am your host, Frank Acom, and we are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning, and we have a very busy morning for you. Did you see Jake Tapper and Speaker of the House Mike Johnson? I mean, the media does not even attempt to hide its bias any longer and its anger towards Republicans. We even see them use the opportunity of Donald Trump making French fries at McDonald's to criticize it. We're going to talk about that. Did you watch the video? That was fun. We're going to talk, let's see. We got some updates to start the program. And we've got comments from viewers after Friday's show. Also, if you did not catch the preparing to cast your vote special that we came up with here on Big Fox, if you missed it, it is up on our YouTube page. I highly recommend if you have questions about early voting, absentee voting, voting in general. It's a half an hour special where we talk to many people, even about getting involved, how you can get involved in party politics on both sides. But first, from viewers after Friday's show, my neighbor here in Tennessee stopped by. He's from New England states. He's afraid to wear his Trump hat here in Tennessee. It's a sad state of affairs when the media has gotten people so unhinged that you can't wear a symbol of your candidate. Yeah, I used to say this a lot when I was in radio, you just have to think, if you were to walk down the street, or let's say a festival, would you feel more comfortable wearing in this case, a Harris Walls t-shirt or a Trump hat? For quite some time, if you recall, there were people being physically attacked, violently attacked, for wearing MAGA hats or a Trump-related shirt. So you've got to ask yourself, if you were to walk down, let's say, one of the festivals in your local area, if you were to walk down the street, now, I'm not saying politically what you'd feel more comfortable with. I'm saying safety-wise, what would you feel more comfortable with? Next up, I was wondering if any of your Democrat viewers can name anything that Kamala Harris has accomplished during her vice presidency. There you go. They posed that question to our valued Democrat viewers. Thank you very much for joining us. All right, couple updates. Israel's intelligence chief is trying to restart the Gaza hostage negotiations, but the chances are low, despite Sinwar's death, is what officials are saying. Sinwar has long stood in the way of the U.S.-backed negotiations. But right now there is 97 hostages in Gaza, including 7 that are Americans. The family of the hostages are calling on Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to do whatever he can to secure a deal immediately, as they fear the terror group might seek retribution for Sinwar's death and take it out on the captives. It proves, and we talked about this in the past, when they have these attacks, like the pager attack that Israel brilliantly mastermind, that is still shocking when you think about it. Something out of a spy movie. And very often Biden or Blinken, someone like that, will be asked, did you know about this ahead of time? They'll say no. Well, there's no surprise, as we now learn that the U.S. has been forced to investigate a leak of Pentagon documents on Israel's plans to attack Iran. The U.S. has opened an investigation into the leaks of the Pentagon's classified documents that deal with Israel's preparation for an attack against Iran. 3 sources familiar with the details told CNN. One of them also confirmed to the network that the leaked documents are authentic. Quote, the leak is very worrying, an American source told CNN. The documents were first published on Telegram, and at the end of the week, they were posted online. According to the documents dated October 15th and October 16th, the Israeli Air Force recently conducted exercises and rehearsals in preparation for an attack against Iran. So this is one of the many reasons, because there's such an anti-Israel sentiment within the government. Of course, we see them on college campuses as well, the anti-Semitic protests, that Israel isn't safe telling America its secrets, telling them their plans. That's why the pager story, or the pager attack had to be kept secret from the U.S., or that was something that could easily fall off the rails. Because if you recall at the time, they had thought their cell phones had been compromised, so they switched to a kind of an antiquated piece of technology, which were these pagers that Israel apparently for years had been planning and made it nearly undetectable explosives in the pagers. If word were to spread or a document were to be leaked, that would have all been for naught. So now, of course, the U.S. is investigating the leak of the Pentagon documents on Israel's plan to attack Iran. Well, all it takes is some nameless, faceless bureaucrat, like we saw so often during the Trump administration with the leaks, leaking this information and really jeopardizing and compromising Israel and their plans to win this war. And again, I know I've said it on this program numerous times, but it is fascinating and really encouraging to see Benjamin Netanyahu as he says, listen, thanks for the advice, thanks for the comments, but we're going to win this thing. And that's what was encouraging when you saw the announcement of Sinwar's death. Another update, and yes, we're going to go quickly this morning through some updates. Oh, I wanted to mention, Paul Andrews is going to be our guest in the 7 o'clock hour. He's going to tell us about SUNY CCC's upcoming open house. That'll be coming up later on in the program. This is going to be a very busy couple of weeks, folks, when it comes to guests. And I thought it was going to be busy. I mentioned it on Friday's show. And then I attended that Tri-County Republican dinner on Saturday, which was a great event. Getting to see everybody and have nice conversations. Thank you. Everybody came over and said hi and said they watched the show. I really do appreciate that. But having talked to some people there on the ground, some people that had, time slips away saying, hey, we got to get on the show. Yes, we're going to average somewhere between 2 and 3 interviews a day starting. I think this is kind of the calm before the storm. I know we have a guest tomorrow. But we're going to have about 1, maybe 2 a day this week. And then the last week, it should be, pretty interesting. You're not going to want to miss it. We'll put it that way. A couple other quick updates. The deadly shooting at former President Trump's rally in Pennsylvania on July 13th was a, quote, preventable incident stemming from a lack of proper planning and communications between law enforcement agencies, according to an explosive new report. The House Task Force investigates the attempts on Trump's life. They are releasing their interim findings today with a final report expected by December the 13th. Quote, although the findings in the report are preliminary, the information obtained during the first phase of the task force's investigation clearly shows a lack of planning and coordination between the Secret Service and its law enforcement partners before the rally, says the report. U.S. Secret Service personnel at the event did not give clear guidance and local authorities about how to manage secret. Let me try it again. It's Monday morning, folks. Bear with me. U.S. Secret Service personnel at the event did not give clear guidance to state and local authorities about how to manage security outside of their hard perimeter, nor was there a central meeting between U.S. Secret Service and the law enforcement agencies supporting them that morning for the rally. 2 findings presented as key failures in the 51-page report. Put simply, the evidence obtained by the task force to date shows the tragic and shocking events of July 13th were preventable and should never have happened. A would-be assassin's bullet clipped Trump, as you are aware. By this time, you've seen the iconic photo by now where he says, fight. The Monday report underscores the mountain of scrutiny that the Secret Service has grappled with since the shooting, with lawmakers on both sides questioning how Crooks, which Thomas Matthew Crooks was the attempted assassin, how he was able to fire off 8 shots before being killed by a single bullet to the head. The task force found that Crooks, quote, had been under scrutiny by the Secret Service's state and local partners for roughly 40 minutes before information about a suspicious person reached the Secret Service command post. It said 3 local law enforcement officers noticed Crooks around 5 p.m., each independently deducing his behavior and manner was suspicious. Back and forth ensued among local and state units, with communications made more difficult by a lack of central command system with the United States Secret Service. The report later said that from around 5:38 p.m. to 5:51 p.m., a series of calls and messages about Crooks' description and movements reached the Secret Service. The document also referenced prior testimony by a witness from the Butler Township Police Department, whose colleagues spotted Crooks on the roof just before he opened fire. The witness said that their colleagues fell from the roof, which he was tenuously gripping, while shouting, "There's an AR, a guy with an AR. To date, the task force has not received any evidence to suggest that messages reached the former president's Secret Service detail prior to shots being fired. The report also quoted a witness from the Butler County Emergency Services Unit, whose account of shooting Crooks appears to undercut the Secret Service's assertion that one of its snipers killed the gunman. He fired a single shot from a standing position at Crooks, who was in a prone position on the roof. Butler ESU Witness 5 told the task force that he believes his shot is what hit Crooks. So that's another real red flag. If you recall, disposing of his body, Crooks' body, almost immediately. I'm not saying cover up in a nefarious way, but cleaning up. Let's word it that way. The roof and the area where Crooks was. Secret Service from the beginning has seemed more to be covering their back ends in all of this than they have been to get the information out there, so it'll never happen again. The autopsy found no evidence of any entry wound from a second bullet, is reported here. And there is no evidence to date to the contrary that it was that person from Butler County Emergency Services United that made the fatal shot. His blood work was also positive for lead, some other things, with a latter element potentially coming from Crooks' time spent at a firing range. The report also points to logistical issues, particularly on the part of Secret Service in the hours before the rally took place. I will say, and I know Trump has praised Secret Service and the job that they've done in the past. I worked closely with them. I will say that they have stepped up their game after going to the J.D. Vance rally last week as a member of the press and having what you'd call a closer kind of maybe parking pass. As I had mentioned on last week's program, a lot of scrutiny going through my car. The Secret Service dog sniffing every inch of the vehicle. And it was a really interesting experience, and I thank Secret Service. I think now they maybe realize that they got a little lax, or the old statement, fat and happy, got a little lax with security, and now hopefully they have turned things around, and it looks as if they have. Of course, they stopped that second attempted assassination of Trump at his golf course. It's unfortunate, back to that viewer's point about not even feeling comfortable about wearing a hat, the dangers and the divide in this country, and it's only getting worse. So Gavin Newsom saying it's fair to call Trump a fascist. One article, what was it, over the weekend, compared him not just to Hitler, as they always do. Unfortunately, we have a piece on that later on, but to Hitler, who was it, Mussolini, and maybe Stalin. Now they're going all in. That kind of rhetoric. And of course, when it first happened, they say, let's tone down the rhetoric. And now we see, as we near Election Day, the rhetoric only ramping up, only firing up. So we have to take our first break. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
Isn't your wellness important? Don't you want more energy? Isn't your wellness important? Don't you want more energy? Now's the best time to make every day better and relieve those achy muscles and pains than with the Hesselson's Hot Tub. Hesselson's has hot tubs in stock and available for immediate delivery with unbelievable savings. Hesselson's offers 0% interest-free financing for up to 5 full years. Hesselson's carries the only hot tub brand in the industry with the exclusive freshwater salt system that is eco-friendly and easy to use and only enhances your hot tubbing experience. Come in today and see why your next hot tub should be a Hesselson's hot tub. And remember, it's always fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.
If you or one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer.
How do I know if I have a case?
Call 844-292-6222 and consult with one of our attorneys to find out if the products you used are part of the lawsuit. Your eligibility will also depend on how often you use these hair products and your specific cancer diagnosis. If you regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. Call 844-292-6222.
How much will it cost to talk to an attorney?
There is no fee unless we win your case. Call 844-292-6222 for your free case review.
Whether because of discomfort lack of mobility, your lifestyle, or occupation. You sit inactively way too many hours a day. Introducing Ellipse, the premium quality automatic seated exerciser that strengthens legs, increases mobility, and boosts circulation without physical strain or impact.
It is so quiet that none of my coworkers even know I'm using it.
Strengthen and tone your legs. Increase your mobility, flexibility, and balance. Plus, stimulate healthy circulation.
My joints feel better, my knees feel better, my back feels better. It makes me feel stronger too.
Perfect for home therapy. Whisper quiet to use while you work.
My circulation is moving, I'm burning calories, and it makes me feel energetic.
Call now and order Ellipse, the seated exerciser that strengthens legs, increases mobility, and boosts circulation. Call and get upgraded to the Deluxe Bundle. Get the faster motor or 5 miles of steps per hour, the step counter, the sport mat, and wireless remote. Call now.
Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact Boss Security for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, I'm so glad that you've joined us as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio. Here is an update, and it's interesting how CBS is trying to cover for the select editing of Harris's interview. CBS News pushed back against former President Trump's claims that 60 Minutes deceitfully edited its interview with Vice President Harris, dismissing the allegations as false in a statement released Sunday. After weeks of staying mum despite mounting backlash over the interview, CBS published a statement on Sunday addressing the outrage that ensued after airing two different answers to the same question in the 60 Minutes interview earlier this month with the Democratic nominee. Quote, former President Donald Trump is accusing 60 Minutes of deceitfully editing of our October 7th interview with Vice President Kamala Harris. That is false. 60 Minutes gave an excerpt of our interview to Face the Nation that used a longer section of her answer than that on 60 Minutes. Same question, same answer, but a different portion of the response. When we edit an interview, whether a politician, an athlete, or a movie star, we strive to be clear, accurate, and on point. The portion of her answer on 60 Minutes was more succinct, which allows time for other subjects in a wide-ranging 21-minute-long segment. What a way to cover up, isn't it? No. We just wanted to make it so there's more time, more opportunity. Cut some of that word salad and make it more opportunity to hear from her. Then why won't they release a transcript? Is this the only instance where they cut it down to be more quote-unquote succinct? So admitting there that they cut it to make it sound better. That's the only way I think you can look at that. The statement then reminds readers that former President Trump, quote, pulled out of his interview with 60 Minutes and the vice president participated. The Trump campaign denied that it had ever formally accepted the invitation for the interview. Imagine that. So you get caught with your hand in the cookie jar, so to speak. You get caught selectively editing something to make Kamala Harris look better. Obviously, after the full clip played on Face the Nation, it started to get some backlash. It started to get some people upset at her, not upset at her, but embarrassed by the word salad, pointing to it. It became a negative. And so what did 60 Minutes do? They cut it down to make it quote unquote more succinct and then take this opportunity, not to release a transcript, to show that they're fully transparent. No, they took it as an opportunity to knock Donald Trump. The media proving time and time again of their bias and their hatred. Just watch, if you didn't, I'd highly recommend that you watch Jake Tapper and his outright anger at Speaker Mike Johnson. His interrupting, his almost bullying of Speaker Johnson. But I'll continue. This is what Donald Trump said in response. 60 Minutes just admitted to doing exactly what President Trump accused them of doing. They edited in a different response from another part of her answer to make Kamala Harris sound less incoherent than she really was. Their statement is not a denial. It is an admission that they did exactly what they were accused of. This is another reminder of how hopelessly biased 60 Minutes is and how correct President Trump was to decline their invitation to be subjected to their fake news hackery. Release the transcript. Yeah, notice they completely, and that's from Trump's campaign, notice they completely ignored the calls for releasing the transcript. The statement comes hours after Trump called for the interview to be taken off air during a scathing sit-down interview with Fox News. I've never seen anything like it. She gave a horrible, incompetent answer on a news program, and so she gives an answer that shows that she's dumb or incompetent or something's wrong with her. This is Trump now. It's so bad that the people at CBS say, we're going to do a little editing. They take the whole ridiculous answer out, and it was a long answer, and replace it with a much shorter answer that you had to do with a totally different subject, which also didn't make sense, but it wasn't incompetent. Again, would they have done this for Donald Trump? Ask yourself that question. If you're saying, well, because listen, I've been in media a long time. I know sometimes people, we don't hear, but some people do edit interviews for time to clean them up a little bit. I know in radio, I don't think I might have for some older guests that we had on the program that maybe the answers ran on and I wanted to, obviously not have anything negative come out about them or any questions about them. I might have done that, but if it was few and far between. So to act as if this is all par for the course, then again, I would ask the question of 60 Minutes, would you have done the same thing if it were former President Trump? If Trump gave a long-winded answer that made him look poorly, would you have cut it to make it sound more quote-unquote succinct? 60 Minutes has been taking heat in recent days for airing two different answers to the same question in 60 Minutes interview earlier this month with Harris. Harris was mocked by conservatives when footage of her offering a lengthy word salad was aired by Face the Nation to promote the sit-down. When Bill Whitaker asked why it seemed like Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu wasn't listening to the U.S. However, the vice president's lengthy answer didn't make the version that aired on Monday night. So more people, of course, seeing the one that would air on 60 Minutes than the one that was on Face the Nation. They realized as the pushback started that maybe it's time to edit it to make her look better, more succinct. The Center for American Rights argued that the discrepancies amount to deliberate news distortion, a violation of FCC rules governing broadcasting public interest obligations, and formally filed a complaint with the FCC. Former President Trump called for CBS to lose its broadcasting license last week, writing on Truth Social, quote, a giant fake news scam by CBS and 60 Minutes. Her real answer was crazy or dumb, so they actually replaced it with another answer in order to save her or at least make her look better. Well, this is very similar if you look at ABC. I believe it was ABC. During the debate, they said, the moderators saying that they had practiced ahead of time to just fact check Trump because they knew that Biden missed some opportunities to get some real impactful comments in or attacks on Trump, and they didn't want that to happen again this time with Harris. So admitting, hey, we practiced ahead of time. We thought of different answers he might give that we could fact check. And what was that for? That was to protect Harris and to attack Trump. So again, I asked the question to anybody watching. If Donald Trump had given a kind of a rambling answer in a sit-down interview with 60 Minutes, do you think they would cut it and edit it to make him sound more succinct, make him sound more on point, and then do it under the guise of saving time so they could get more questions in? The other big news is the fraud committed by 60 Minutes and CBS together with the Democrat Party working together with them, which will go down as the single biggest scandal in broadcasting history, I predict, Trump said. Okay, we've got other issues we've got to get to. I realize I'm running just a little bit late, so I hope that you'll stay with us. Again, coming up in the 7 o'clock hour, we'll be talking with the Director of Recruitment and Admission, Paul Andrews from SUNY CCC. They have an open house coming up on the 26th. Can you imagine? It's already the 21st, folks. What are we down to? 15, 16 days, something like that before Election Day. Also, I know we ask this question a lot. Will you be voting early? Are you someone that wants to wait specifically for Election Day? Just out of curiosity, there's no right or wrong answer. I know Republicans, and we're going to get to the numbers, by the way, here in just a moment about what the numbers look like for early voting throughout the country because other states started before us. Ours doesn't start until October 26th. But some Republicans calling for Republicans to get out there and early vote because as you saw in the past with the snowstorm that cost us a congressional seat. Now, obviously, you hope on November 5th there's not going to be a snowstorm. But what if, as Vance said, and I think Vance said it at the rally I attended, but he says that on a regular basis, that, what if, God forbid, your kid gets sick, so you can't make it out, or you're asked to work late at work and you just can't get an excuse to get out and vote. So the idea is if you early vote, you bank it, and you're all set, and you can enjoy Election Day without worrying about making it before the booths close. We've got some other updates when we come back. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
Isn't your wellness important? Don't you want more energy? Now's the best time.
And were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer.
How do I know if I have a case?
Call 844-292-6222 and consult with one of our attorneys to find out if the products you used are part of the lawsuit. Your eligibility will also depend on how often you use these hair products and your specific cancer diagnosis. If you regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. Call 844-292-6222.
How much will it cost to talk to an attorney?
There is no fee unless we win your case. Call 844-292-6222 for your free case review.
When we have the food we need, we are at our best. We push further. We rise higher. We unlock our full potential. When we are at our best, we have more to offer the world around us. When we have the food we need, we make our communities stronger. Together, we can help everyone get the food they need to thrive. Join the movement to end hunger at feedingamerica.org/actnow.
I'm Nancy O'Dell. This is Crime Expose.
It's chilling, taunting.
We knew exactly who it was.
Blood stains on her shorts.
See you in September.
The beautiful Boss Security Roof Cam. Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and security needs. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. One quick update before we start talking about the general election. I also have a few things. When should I go to it? I've got a couple things here about Prop 1, which we're going to get to maybe after this, maybe because this is local. And then we'll go on to Prop 1, and then we'll get into the presidential race. How's that? First up, receiving this on Friday, Assemblyman Phil Palmisano, who will be on the program on Friday. Fridays with Phil. He shares his support of Judge Matthew McCarthy, running for Steuben County Family Court Judge. We will be talking with McCarthy and his opponent before Election Day. This is what Assemblyman Phil Palmisano had to say. I've known Judge Matt McCarthy for over 20 years. Matt has an unmatched background of judicial, trial, and legal knowledge and experience that he will bring to work each day on behalf of the residents of Steuben County. Matt is the most qualified candidate with the best experience, right temperament, and greater character needed to serve us. You can count on Matt to work very hard for you, and I'm proud to wholeheartedly support and endorse Judge Matt McCarthy to be our next Steuben County and Family Court Judge. So there is an endorsement update from our friend Assemblyman Phil Palmisano. Let's talk about Prop 1. You know, 2 weeks ago, was it now, that we had our two guests on, Bobby Joe Cox and Senator Barillo, telling us the reasons they believe that you should vote no on Proposition 1. It was very scary. If you recall, what Bobby Joe Cox said was, I'm not even a Republican, and I'm telling you to vote no. This is very serious. The New York Post says that the Prop 1 opens the door to non-citizens voting. This is one of the major issues, I should say. New York Democrats have failed to legalize non-citizen voting, but may get their way by passing Proposition 1 on the ballot in November. The deceptively written Equal Rights Amendment doesn't protect women or abortion rights, but does empower lawmakers to ignore the current language of the state constitution in the name of protecting a whole host of new rights that it would create. Let's be clear. Abortion rights are not under threat in New York. Keep that in mind. If that's an issue that you're saying, I want to, again, maybe codify, strengthen the abortion rights in New York State, this is not what this is about. Abortion rights are not under threat in New York. Citizenship and voting rights, however, are under attack. The court blocked the New York City Council's 2021 law to let 800,000 non-citizens with green cards vote, since Article 2, Section 1 of the state constitution restricts voting in New York to U.S. citizens who are 18 or older and have lived in the state at least 30 days. But Prop 1 would undo that protection. Among the host of new rights it creates is a prohibition of discrimination on the basis of, quote, national origin. This is one that I've focused in on the program, but it's just one of many, many issues with Prop 1. And I want to make sure that we have a whole nother show, not a whole show, but a big section of our show dedicated to this. And we're going to ask Bobby Joe Cox back on the program. And I know we'll talk about it with Assemblyman Phil Palmisano, who's going to join us on Friday, some others as well. That's an open license. Prop 1 is an open license for lefty judges to either okay a law that lets even illegal immigrants vote, or to simply rule that they have the right even without the legislature doing a thing. And progressives, over the feeble resistance of Governor Hochul, have already created a working left-wing majority on the state's top bench, the Court of Appeals. Prop 1 is a, quote, Trojan horse of epic proportions, warns constitutional lawyer Bobby Ann Cox, our friend. Indeed, if it was truly about protecting abortion rights, it would simply say something like the right to abortion is absolute. Instead, it bans, quote, unequal treatment for a long list of categories, and then turns around in its second half and allows unequal treatment as long as in the name of countering past unfairness. Those categories include sexual orientation and gender identity, as well as national origin. So if it passes the courts, it will definitely mandate the most radical reading of transgender rights. Meanwhile, the second half of this constitutional amendment would empower madness like rank racial quotas for public school and university admissions. Indeed, for any law or government action that's claimed to promote, quote, equity. A much more honest name for it would be the Unequal Rights Amendment. Proposition 1, in short, is a disgraceful, deceptive bid to milk New Yorkers' pro-choice sentiments, to empower the lunatic left that now dominates state politics to impose its agenda permanently, without any further chance for voters to protest. If you have no reason to vote, still take the trouble so you can deliver another no to Prop 1. We've got another update on Prop 1 when we come back, and then we're going to get into the presidential race. What did you think of Trump at the McDonald's? Did you watch that video? Also, asking the question this morning, do you think there is any chance that if Donald Trump would have sat down with 60 Minutes and he had a long, drawn-out, kind of nonsensical answer, that they would cut that down to make it more succinct? Or have we all just accepted that bias is so prevalent now on all the mainstream media? And I would point again, as I have been on this program, but it happened yet again, watch Jake Tapper and his reaction to Speaker Johnson and the nastiness to Speaker Johnson, the outright dislike on his face and hatred for Speaker Johnson and the Republican Party. So we can talk about that if you happen to see it. What did you think over the weekend with various political, it's getting into that time, rallies and interviews? What did you think? All right. Another couple things on New York State when we come back. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
Ranger 1000 is equipped for whatever comes your way. If you have the know-how to take on what comes, the new Ranger 1000 delivers what you need to make short work of it.
Ithaca Recreation Sports, Route 13 in Newfield. Get outside and ride.
Trick or Treat is here, and Big Fox TV has some tips to keep our kids safe. Wear bright, reflective, flame-resistant costumes and remove any tripping hazards. Travel in groups and review traffic safety. Check outdoor lights and carry a flashlight. Never go into a house or car for candy, and let your parents check your treats. This reminder is brought to you by your caring friends at Tom's South Corning Collision, Cutler's Carpet and Flooring, Shedden's Wholesale, Suburban Propane, and Big Fox TV.
During high school, I hung with the wrong crowd and I never graduated.
I helped Santiago in many different ways, like all fathers do, because he always wanted to go to college.
I felt a little embarrassed to come back to school, but eventually, once I came here, I knew that it's for a bigger goal.
He was very dedicated, hardworking. He connected with his teachers, he connected with other students. That was one of the key reasons why he was able to keep forging ahead.
It was amazing to see him graduate. This was one thing that meant so much to him, and of course, it meant so much to us too.
With the help of my father and having my son, that was all the motivation that I needed. That support is everything.
Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org.
And we are back. Our roof cam brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact Boss Security for all your business and home security needs. Beautiful day on Marcus Street as we broadcast live from the Hesselson's studio. So one other last minute thing on Prop 1, and don't forget that will be up for a vote to kind of simplify it. And we've given you the opportunity in a way to do the research. We've talked with experts on this, and we're going to continue. We're going to have other guests on before Election Day. I want to make sure to book that because let me say we're booking up very quickly. So it's not too late if you are a candidate, but you'll have to contact me today if you don't mind. You see the number on the bottom of the screen. It doesn't have to be today, but if you push it much farther, I don't think it'll happen, and I don't want that to be the case. But we'll have another expert on Proposition 1. But to simplify it, Republicans are saying vote no. Democrats are saying vote yes. Governor Hochul has invested her legacy in Prop 1, known as the Equal Rights Amendment, on the Election Day ballot in 2 weeks. It's fitting because Prop 1 sums up both Hochul's administration and the direction of New York's Democrat Party over the past decade. Because it is so ideologically confused, the Empire State's ruling party must hide behind something that's popular to pass all sorts of other things that aren't popular or even practicable. Man, I guess it's going to be that kind of morning. Practical. Excuse me. What is Prop 1? Hochul says it's about abortion rights. Quote, by voting yes, we can enshrine abortion rights in our state constitution, protecting them from the ultra-conservative state legislatures, members of Congress, justices, and presidential hopefuls who want to dismantle those freedoms, she wrote this week. So voters naturally expect to enter the voting booth to decide yes or no on a straightforward question about abortion. But no dice. Consider the state's existing rights to free worship reads like this, quote, the free exercise and enjoyment of religious professions and worship without discrimination or preference shall forever be allowed. Hochul and state lawmakers could have asked voters to agree to similar free exercise of access to abortion amendment, and it would pass. 2/3 of New Yorkers vote to support abortion access. Instead, Hochul allowed lawmakers to cynically use the abortion issue to sneak all sorts of other stuff into the amendment, which doesn't even mention, by the way, keep this in mind, does not even mention abortion. This is from Nicole Gelinas from New York Post. So the proposed amendment expands the state's list of groups of people protected from discrimination, adding ethnicity, national origin, age, disability and sex, sexual orientation, gender identity, gender expression, pregnancy, pregnancy outcomes, and reproductive health care and autonomy. But lawmakers don't actually want to outlaw much of this discrimination. They still want, say, quotas for women-owned businesses and construction contracts. So they have offered themselves an out, allowing them to continue to pick and choose. Prop 1 also allows laws to prevent or undo past discrimination. Indeed, the state's courts, parsing these contradictory clauses, you can't discriminate except when you can, could fairly determine that any law affecting any of these groups of people is constitutional or unconstitutional according to a judge's whim. But even with this safety valve for themselves, lawmakers have created a mess. There's a reason why some of these seemingly innocuous protections are already in the state constitution. If you can't discriminate based on age, you can't offer senior discounts, like half-price Metro cards. What's a reasonable accommodation for a person in a wheelchair who wants to be a sanitation worker? It's lawmaking for social media age. Hochul and the legislature are congratulating themselves on being forward-looking on abortion and leaving the rest of us to sort out the surprises later. Sound familiar? Because it should. Hochul loves to tell us that she never raised taxes on the middle class, but she did raise taxes on the middle class. A $1.1 billion payroll tax hike to benefit the MTA back in 2023. By sneaking the tax hike into a state budget with lots of other things people actually wanted, she diverted attention from it. Ironically, the same year, some of the other things that people actually wanted in the state budget were half measures, fixes to previous ill-advised laws, like criminal justice, quote, reform and marijuana legislation. Remember when advocates told us in the Governor Andrew Cuomo era that bail reform and pot reform were mostly to keep fair evaders and casual tokers out of prison? Of course, there were no fair evaders and casual tokers in prison, just as there's no threat in New Yorkers' abortion access. Under this ruse, though, back in 2019, we got an explosion in shoplifting and violent crime and storefront after storefront of illegal pot shops. In 2019, Cuomo also gave us congestion pricing, which Hochul has now paused. Democrats want credit both for passing congestion pricing and for stopping it. And now they want credit for stopping discrimination while continuing to reserve the right to discriminate. The same dynamic holds at the local level. We're going to close Rikers Island, just not now or soon. The split screen is a result of irreconcilable differences. Differences that are so stark that there's really no room for compromise, at least not for an inept politician like Hochul. Many of the necessary compromises would be found in the details of policy negotiation, and brokering such detail is something the governor can't seem to master. You either put people in prison for repeat shoplifting or you don't. You either charge people to drive into Manhattan or you don't. When you're afraid to take a stand on either side, the natural result is something like Prop 1, which says everything and nothing all at once. By the way, piggybacking on that, nearly 800,000 New Yorkers collected welfare checks last fiscal year. 800,000, just to show you how we're doing as a state. New York City shelled out cash assistance to 787,400 residents last fiscal year. So this is not even taking into account upstate New Yorkers. While taxpayers have already been shocked with a more than $5.5 billion tab the past 2 years to provide shelter and other services for a mass influx of migrants, they have also had to separately deal with a surge in New Yorkers seeking handout. And then you tie that along with the number of young people accused of serious crimes surges in New York City. A 37% rise in the number of young people accused in serious crimes mirrors a broader increase. But it has alarmed the police, who say young offenders could grow up to break the law again. Well, you think? This is one of those examples of when they changed the law where younger people could no longer be charged as an adult, or they kind of got a slap on the wrist, no bail, those type of things. Gangs started hiring and recruiting young people because they know that they can do the crime, they can do the dirty work, and get in absolutely no trouble. The number of people under 18 accused of major crimes, including murders, robberies, and assault, has increased sharply in New York City in the past 7 years. a steep trajectory that has alarmed law enforcement officers. Last year, there were 4,858 major crimes where a minor were accused or arrested, up from 3,543 in 2017. That's a 37% increase. Those accused or arrested in felony assaults, in which a person is seriously injured or a deadly weapon like a gun or knife is used, have jumped by 28% since 2017. Robberies have risen by 52%. Killing in which a young person was accused rose to 36 in 2023 from 10 in 2017. Most of what we see is youth-on-youth crime, said Chief Michael Lepetieri, head of crime strategies for the police department. Crime committed by adults also rose in the same period. And they keep, it goes back to the bail reform. You're tying the hands of law enforcement and you're coddling the criminals, especially young criminals who receive no punishment. And that's why gangs have recruited them. Very Charles Dickens-esque, where you have pickpocketers, violent crimes now from young people. But we got to take a short break. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. When we come back, we're going to jump into Election Day 2024 and the presidential election. So stay with us.
Isn't your wellness important? Don't you want more energy? Now's the best time to make every day better and relieve those achy muscles and pains than with the Hesselson's Hot Tub. Hesselson's has hot tubs in stock and available for immediate delivery with unbelievable savings. Hesselson's offers 0% interest-free financing for up to 5 full years. Hesselson's carries the only hot tub brand in the industry with the exclusive freshwater salt system that is eco-friendly and easy to use and only enhances your hot tubbing experience. Come in today and see why your next hot tub should be a Hesselson's hot tub. And remember, it's always fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.
Want to know why it's hard to stop a train? It's how we've invented products that reinvented our world. It's how we test as hard as the elements do. It's how we run.
Aaron's Heating and Air Conditioning in Corning, New York is a local, veteran-owned and operated company with over 25 years experience. From service and repair to new installations, trust the experts at Aaron's Heating and Air Conditioning.
Something with a diamond in it.
Diamondback rattlesnake.
It's in the name. Name a low-calorie food you might make your edible underwear out of.
Salmon.
Watch it weeknights. Share it the next day.
Wild caught Norwegian teriyaki.
Share in the fun. Weeknights on Family Feud.
7 and 7:30 on Big Fox.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact Boss Security for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking. As we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio, we're talking, and I pose a question to you. Will you be early voting, or are you going to wait until the typical Election Day vote, the November 5th vote? If you missed the Preparing to Cast Your Vote special that we had here on Big Fox, it played kind of late on Friday. If you missed it, it is on our YouTube page. But early voting has begun in states across the country where voters are able to cast their ballots either in person or via mail. As of right now, and this was actually, when I say right now, it was updated, I believe, this morning at 5 a.m., 13,939,434 mail-in and early in-person votes have been cast nationally. So essentially 14 million people early voting. Do you plan? I know Donald Trump, J.D. Vance have been pushing, and Republicans in general, pushing for Republicans to get out and early vote. Will you be doing that, or do you still feel as if the only real right way to do it is on November 5th? Just curious. Now, Senator Raphael Warnock said on Face the Nation on Sunday that the high voter turnout in Georgia's early voting did not disprove charges of voter suppression. This is Senator Raphael Warnock from Georgia. No, I think the aim of voter suppression is to discourage people from voting. Look, we saw the shenanigans of the Georgia State Board of Elections for what they are. This effort to literally change the rules while people are voting, and the courts rightly pushed back on that. Remember that during my runoff, my last runoff, I had to sue the state of Georgia, state officials, just so people could vote the first weekend of the runoff. Thankfully, the courts got it right during my election. And by the way, my margin of victory was close to the numbers of people who voted the first weekend that they said we couldn't vote. The courts got it right in that case. They got it right again this week, but I think the most important thing is for folks to show up. The way to respond to this is not allow anyone to silence your voice. I'm glad we're seeing this incredible turnout all across our state. I think it speaks to the vigilance of the people of Georgia, and I hope they'll keep it up all the way through early voting, which ends on November 1st. Then they can get others there on November the 5th. Now, how can you, with record-breaking numbers of early voters, how can you still suggest that there's a voter suppression out there? He said, listen, I've been through a few elections in Georgia, and what we saw was lines wrapped around buildings. We saw the effort of state officials to make it impossible for people to vote the first weekend of our runoff, and Georgians stood up. Listen, the fact that voters the voter turnout, doesn't mean there's no voter suppression. It just means that people aren't willing to have their voices silenced or muted. And the good news is that they're showing up, and we'll keep that going between now and November 1st, and then show up on Election Day on November 5th. So the host, Brennan, says, so you stand by your belief that there are attempts to suppress the vote in Georgia, even with record early voting turnout. He said, listen, we saw that the State Board of Elections did just this last week. They literally are trying to change the rules in the middle of an election. And the courts had to undo what they were trying to do. And what I'm saying to the people of Georgia is that the way to respond to this is to keep showing up, because when we show up, we win. So even with record turnout, it doesn't mean there hasn't been voter suppression, already planting that seed in people's minds. But that is a point that he raises there. And I've heard other him, of course, a Democrat, but I've heard Republicans say this, get out, early vote, whatever day you want, the 26th or whenever, go out and early vote. And then on November 5th, focus on bringing your family, your friends to the voting booth. Focus on giving someone a ride that needs it so they can vote on Election Day. It gives you that full day to essentially work. And some candidates still do phone banks and make sure to call to remind people to get out and vote. So maybe you could participate in that for your selected candidates if you early vote. It gives you more of the day to help push things across the finish line. Now, Mike Johnson, as I said, was on State of the Union over the weekend. Man, it's so tough for a Republican. You think about CNN whining about Fox News, or it was Harris versus Fox News. And then you watch these interviews with Speaker Johnson, and when it's by the mainstream media, and it goes again to prove that a Democrat could never handle being a Republican, because their normal interviews as a Republican are much more contentious with the hosts than what Harris had to deal with Brett Baer. But that was newsworthy that she actually got pushback for once. So she actually had to, or was asked to, actually give an answer. Now, in many instances, she didn't. In many instances, it was just a attack Trump type of answer. But to think, if you watch Mike Johnson, what he has to put up with, or a J.D. Vance or a Tom Cotton, and you think that they still are okay and comfortable with whining about Fox News' interview with Harris, it's fascinating. But Mike Johnson said on CNN State of the Union, as we just kind of give you a quick overcap, like I said, 14 million people already early voting. He said, the headline that I read about the rally in Pennsylvania yesterday was the big question. It's the one that Kamala Harris has not been able to or willing to answer. And that is, are you better off now than you were under the Trump administration 4 years ago? No one can answer that question with a yes. I mean, no one. And that's why Kamala Harris herself avoids the question. Look, I've been traveling the country nonstop, Jake, and this was Jake Tapper, who was very nasty to Speaker Johnson. I've been in over 230 cities in 40 states right now. And I'm spending these final closing weeks in the swing states and blue states and toss-up districts for the House. I'm absolutely convinced there's an energy out there right now. I'm convinced that we're going to win the White House, the Senate, and the House. We're going to have a very aggressive agenda to get the economy going again to help everyone. Look, everywhere I go, Jake, everybody has the same concerns. They're fed up and they're fired up about the cost of living that's not affordable now. Rising crime rates everywhere, and the weakness on the world stage and the wide open border. They know that Kamala Harris is responsible for those things, and they know that President Trump is offering alternatives. Now, in this situation, I just read you what Johnson had to say, but throughout the interview, Jake Tapper interrupting, fact-checking, getting just angry, and that's even outright laughing at something that Johnson was responding to, and I don't remember the exact answer. But again, proving that a Democrat could never handle being a Republican when it comes to how the media treats them. We talked about that with former Congressman Joe Sempolinski on last week's program, 2 weeks ago, excuse me, who, by the way, Joe's going to be on next Thursday, I believe. Yeah, the lineup is going to be pretty cool these next few weeks as we near Election Day. But that was the point we made, that the coverage is so different. So Harris, it's exactly why Walz wasn't ready for the follow-up or the clarification, if you will, during the debate, saying, well, just to be clear, why did you essentially lie about Tiananmen Square and being there? And he didn't expect whoa, did you just push me with a second question on this subject? My nonsensical answer was supposed to be enough, and then to move on. Okay, we got to take a break because I'm running late. Here's a message from a viewer, not just a wave. Thank you for the wave. I will vote early on October the 28th. Okay, it begins on the 26th, so you're going to start on the 28th. I like it. What else? Who else out there? Are you going to vote early? I'm going to make it a point this year to vote early, which is actually really simple because it's right at one of the locations is right at the library. So if it's a nice day, I'll use it as an excuse to duck out of the office and head over there and early vote. And as they said during the preparing to cast your vote special that I was a part of here on Big Fox, as they said, you still get a sticker. So don't worry. You can still post that photo to Instagram or to Facebook. All right, we got to take a short break. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox this Monday morning, moving fast. I hope you'll stay with us.
If you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call today.
Lease a brand new 2024 Subaru Crosstrek Limited all-wheel drive featuring power move and heated seats for only $369 a month for 36 months. Make car buying simple. Drive your deal at Simmons Rockwell Subaru in...
Hi, I'm Smokey Bear, and I made an assistant to help you out because only you can prevent wildfires.
Hey, Assistant Smokey Bear, call me Papa Bear because I'm grilling up dinner. Do you get it?
Yes, good job.
So, what should I do with all these coals?
Don't just toss them out. Put them in a metal container because those embers can start a wildfire.
I understand. The stakes are high.
Ha, 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 ha.
See, Smokey thinks I'm funny.
In a few words. Urkel, glasses. Nerd. It pays to know your nerds. If you guys didn't get nerd with me sitting up here on this show, 25 words or less.
Weeknight. The Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact Boss Security for all your business and home security needs. Thank you to Boss Security. As we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio, can you believe it? Our number one of Frankly Speaking already in the books. Coming up in the next hour, we'll be talking with Paul Andrews about the SUNY Corning Community College open house, which is on October the 26th, the first day of early voting. That won't come up in the interview, but we will be talking with Paul Andrews, Director of Recruitment and Admissions. So what are your thoughts? There is no wrong answer, but just your thoughts. Are you going to vote early this year like so many have been encouraging? Are you going to wait and hold out until November 5th? Also, what did you think of the shows on the weekend? How nasty they were to Speaker Johnson and others. And also, what did you think about former President Trump and his visit to McDonald's? We're going to talk about Trump had a very busy weekend, getting some support from former football players. We'll talk about that as well. He was at a game on Sunday. That was after being a fry cook for a little while. I don't know. Watching that, I think it was the second batch he did. It didn't seem like he did a great job of getting that oil off of there. So I don't know how bad I would have. I like how some people said, whatever you give me, I'm fine with it. Anything from the former president. I thought it was fun. I thought it was really pretty cool to watch. So we'll talk about that in the next hour as well. So stay with us. Hour number one is officially over. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here at WYDC TV. Big Fox, stay with us.
If you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call today.
Now there's a product that sears food, stirs it, even shreds it for you. Introducing the Power Excel StirMax Multi-Cooker with a built-in auto stirrer that gives you the freedom of adding your ingredients and walking away and coming back to meals that cook up to 60% faster. No more stirring food. StirMax technology automatically rotates the paddle clockwise, then counterclockwise, so it stirs it for you. Powerful enough to even shred food. Then the 7.5 quart pot goes right to the table to serve. With a premium ceramic coating, nothing sticks. And it's dishwasher safe. Now you can try the Power Excel StirMax Multi-Cooker with lid and recipe guide in your home for 30 days for just $14.99. You also get the steamer and rice basket for healthy meals, StirMax serving spoon that snaps in place for easy serving, and $100 in free grocery coupons. We'll even ship your order all absolutely free. This is an exclusive TV-only offer, so order now.
Hour number 2 of Frankly Speaking. Thank you so much for joining us as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. I am your host, Frank Ake. This is WYDC TV, Big Fox. Coming up in a little bit, we'll hear from Paul Andrews from Corning Community College, SUNY Corning Community College. They have an open house coming up on October the 26th. Here is a comment from a viewer before we went into break. What about Trump talking about Arnold Palmer's, what we're going to say here is, quote, lewd rhetoric. That's how CNN put it. Relaying a story about Arnold Palmer and showering after a day on the golf course. You can find that for yourself, but I know there are kids getting ready for school and they're watching this program. So just know that it was a, we'll say off-color story. He should not be president. That's from a viewer. Thank you very much. Yes, Trump's wild and lewd rhetoric reaches a new extreme, according to CNN's Stephen Collinson. Trump seemed to validate Harris's message that he is an unserious man who possesses extremely serious consequences. What they're trying to suggest now is that there is a cognitive decline from Trump, which is shockingly hypocritical after keeping it quiet under Biden for 3.5 years. Now to say as if they care, and I don't believe there's a cognitive decline issue with Trump at all. I think what you've gotten from Trump is really the same. Whether or not you like that, it is the same as we saw back in 2016. The kind of a quote-unquote extreme, the shocking things that you sometimes hear. But to say cognitive decline, after Harris, and the polls show it, people believe Harris was instrumental at keeping Biden's cognitive decline secret. That scandal that the media refuses to really discuss, which is keeping the cognitive decline hidden from the public. We're going to talk more about now Kamala Harris, and you feel free to weigh in on it. Bill Maher says Kamala Harris is very vulnerable to an October surprise. Again, this is Bill Maher from Real Time. Republicans are so quick to jump on something Bill Maher says and eat it up if it's something they agree with. Oh, Bill Maher's changed. He hasn't. But it's still worth sometimes mentioning what he has to say. Democrats need to stop thinking that an October surprise is going to save us from another Trump term. Trump's superpower as a candidate is that he's been so constantly awful for so long that it's simply no longer seen. If you're waiting for an October surprise to knock him out, dream on. There are better odds of another Joker musical. This is Kamala's great dilemma. Trump is vulnerable to an is invulnerable to an October surprise, but she, meaning Harris, is very vulnerable because she's the one who is still undefined. And as she showed in this week's Brett Baer interview, her go-to when being attacked for her own actions is usually Trump is worse. Okay, we know that. But now undecided voters want to hear about you. They want someone to vote for. The HBO host summarized that Trump's coalition is made up of people who really do like him and people who think he's better than that far left insanity. And then voters' big doubt about Kamala is, are you part of the far left insanity? The attack ad I see 10 times a day and a question Brett Baer aimed at her on Wednesday was about her saying in 2019 that she supported providing taxpayer-funded sex change operations to illegal immigrants in prison. Something that's actually never happened and has no real bearing on anybody's life. But it is a litmus test for voters out there who want to know of the Democrat, is there anything your fringe can suggest that will ever make you say, no, that's blanking ridiculous? Maher then turned to Harris's appearance on The View, where she said there's not a thing that comes to mind that she would have done differently than during the Biden presidency. He called that response no bueno. It's getting really late. It's getting late early, and we can't afford any more bad answers like this one last week. Next time, maybe try Joe Biden generally did a good job, but sure, I wish we tightened the border sooner as we have done now. And trust me, I learned my lesson, and that's never going to happen. Kamala, it's so important that you win this election, not just for the sake of retaining a real democracy and for the good of the world, but also because I predicted a month ago you'd win this thing, and if you blow it, it's going to make me look bad. I've got a really good prediction record, so please don't mess it up, Kamala. Ever since I put down my marker on you and said you'd win, I wasn't even worried about it. Everyone, everywhere, on the road in LA, texting me, emailing, stopping me at restaurants, asking me, Bill, are you sure? No, I'm not sure. Of course I'm not sure, but that's my gut. I think Kamala Harris wants this. I think she can do this, to say nothing if she loses. She'll never hear the end of it from Joe. I told you I was the only one that could beat him, Biden. Yeah, and that goes, Bill Maher, maybe you watch this, Frankly Speaking, that goes into what I've been saying for a long time, that ego part of Biden that really would like to do a see I told you so. Now, Harris, again, her usual response, according to Bill Maher, is to just attack Trump. And there's a lot of people and undecided voters. I just can't believe there's any undecided voters. But the ones that they interview on CNN and elsewhere, they all say they want to know more about Harris. That the idea that it's just not Trump. Yes, that works for a big, big part of the Democrat Party. But it doesn't work for all the undecideds. It doesn't work for the people who are on the fence about whether or not to support Trump or Harris. The idea that, well, look, I'm not Trump. Well, that doesn't do it. Or to just constantly attack Trump. Harris, seeing that there was no primary, has a lot of quote unquote explaining to do, kind of to show you who she is. And if you go back to her record in 2019, some radical things were said. So she's walking some of that back, but the majority of it is being walked back by her campaign. Now that's not the same. An anonymous source in her campaign is not the same as her directly saying, I do support fracking, or I do. That's just one issue. And I think she has said that since then. But some of these issues that need to be addressed. And the idea that when Brett Barr asks tough questions, it goes right to attacking Trump. Bill Maher suggests that's not effective. She needs to acknowledge the border was mishandled because she's the one who is still undefined. And as she showed in this week's Brett Baer interview, her go-to when attacked for her own action is usually Trump is worse. Okay, we know that. But for now, undecided voters want to hear about you. They want someone to vote for. So that's Bill Maher. Now, Bernie Sanders gives us a little idea on Harris's thought process when it comes to Israel. He was on Jake Tapper's program as well, State of the Union. He said, we know the election is going to be very, very close. This is Jake Tapper. Michigan has a large Arab American and Muslim American population that traditionally votes Democrat. But there's a lot of concern among Democrats that a lot of those voters are either going to go third party or not going to vote at all in protest of the Biden-Harris support for Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu of Israel. Can you imagine? That's how radicalized many in the party have become. And I know it was Van Jones who said there's a marbling of anti-Semitism in the Democrat Party, that you can actually say that Biden and Harris have been too friendly to our ally, too friendly to Benjamin Netanyahu. But I'll continue. What do you say to those voters who are thinking about sitting out this election or voting third party or maybe even voting for Donald Trump because they disapprove of Netanyahu and Biden-Harris is support for Netanyahu? Sanders said, well, what I saw in my own view is, as I'm sure you know, I happen to believe that Hamas is a terrible terrorist organization that attacked Israel on October 7th. Israel had a right to respond, but it did not have a right to go to war against the entire Palestinian people, killing 42,000, injuring 100,000, and destroying almost all of Gaza. That they don't have a right to do. I'll be leading the effort to make sure that we do not provide more offensive military aid to Israel. But to those people who are saying, well, I can't say what Harris, because she disagrees with Trump on the issue, even on that issue, is worse. He'll be closer to Netanyahu. So again, just like Bill Maher is saying Kamala Harris does on a regular basis, Trump on that issue, even on that issue, is worse. He will be closer to Netanyahu. So it's just never mind Harris, never mind her position on it. Trump's worse. So if we are able to elect Harris, Bernie Sanders said, I think we're going to have an opportunity to move her on that issue. Let me repeat that because that's the important takeaway from this whole quote. So if we are able to elect Harris, I think we're going to have an opportunity to move her on that issue. To make it clear, we cannot allow children in Gaza to stop or to die. She will be open to that. I doubt Trump will. We can't even get Republican support in the Senate for humanitarian aid to feed starving children. You really want to vote for Trump, who holds that view? I hope not. So essentially saying, we'll get her to attack on Israel. We'll get her to not support Israel and support our ally, saying if we are able to elect Harris, I think we are going to have an opportunity to move her on that issue. So even though the weakness we've seen from the Biden administration when it comes to our ally Israel, the constant calls for ceasefire and tying their hands and then complaining it's taking too long, all that and much more, turning their back on Netanyahu, Sanders saying, don't worry, Biden, she's not going to be as strict as Biden. She's not going to be as supportive of Israel's Biden. Wow, that should raise some red flags. We got to take a short break, though. Boy, this show is going quick. As I said, Paul Andrews is going to be our guest. Keep those comments, keep those waves coming in. Thank you for that. We've got a couple other things about Harrison. We're going to dive into the Trump campaign, take a look at what happened over. He had a very busy weekend, not just at McDonald's. He does not hide the fact that he loves McDonald's food either. I think that's pretty funny. Saying to the person who had worked there, I think he said 8 years. The guy's name was Frank, and he had worked there for 8 years. And I think Trump said something to the extent of, I've probably seen more fries than you have. Even though you've worked here for 8 years. And I think he said, I'm not saying that proudly. That's probably something to be ashamed of. But I thought that was funny. So keep those comments coming in. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, stay with us.
Attention, Elmeron may lead to vision loss.
If you have suffered vision problems after taking Elmeron to treat bladder pain, call the Hearn Law Firm. Elmeron may be responsible for your vision problems, and you may deserve compensation for your injuries.
If you took Elmeron and now have vision problems, call the Hearn Law Firm at 888-308-3866 right now. You could find out if you qualify in less than 2 minutes. Call 888-308-3866 for your free case review.
Y'all got a lot of stuff here in your water.
You're never gonna believe it, but this can filter up to 60 different contaminants from your water.
It's all about cleaner drinking water.
Dude, that's good water.
And that's good water.
Now that's good water.
That's good water, eh?
No matter where you live, there's a Culligan water expert nearby. At Culligan, we think about your water, so you don't have to.
Call today to schedule your free water test.
How many have you tried to clean a stubborn mess but end up with no success? What you need is the all-new waterproof Ruby Horsepower, the new cordless and rechargeable power scrubber that cleans faster and easier, guaranteed. Watch, baked on oven grease is no match. It blasts away dirt and grime in no time. The power comes from our rotating brushes, spinning at 350 RPM. The incredible torque fights calcium, mildew, mold, and more. Take it in the kitchen, where it busts through caked-on crud, or outside and tackle tough tasks with ease. Get your Ruby Horsepower with 4 additional attachments, all for just $39.99. Great news! They're in stock and ready to ship. Due to high demand, only 2 per order. Order now.
Call 1-800-980-2344. That's 1-800-980-2344, or visit horsepowerscrubber.com. So call 1-800-980-2344 now.
The Big Fox website is here now. WYDCTV.com. Local and national news that keeps you informed and involved. WYDCTV.com. Today's weather, up to date and in your town. WYDCTV.com. Sports news, local events, and health stories that affect you. WYDCTV.com. The Big Fox website. Your news here now. WYDCTV.com.
The Boss Security Roof Cam. Visit Boss Security today in Horseheads for all your security and business and home needs. Welcome back, Frankly Speaking, as we broadcast live from the Hesselson's studio. A couple comments to get to. Coming up in just a little bit, we will be talking with Paul Andrews right around 7:20. Paul Andrews from Corning Community College. Here's a wave. Good morning. Good morning. I won't vote early by mail, but will vote early in person. Are there any statistics available as a result of early voting that shows who is presently winning the election? I don't think so. You're saying by party? Not that I've seen. If you're just joining us, there's 14 million already cast throughout the country in early voting. I have not seen the breakdown of that. It may have been a part of that article, but the way it printed out just showed me the final total. So I have not seen those numbers. I'll be curious. And if I hear anything, I, of course, will let you know. Another comment from a different viewer. I watched the McDonald's episode from the inside and outside views. It was great. Oh, I didn't know there was an outside view. I guess there was quite a huge crowd there outside of the drive-through. I just saw the one where I think it was Forbes maybe. Their camera and the time that he spent making the fries and handing them out to supporters. But back to the Harris-Walz campaign, and then we're going to talk about the Trump campaign. Charlemagne, who interviewed Harris, last week, I believe it was, is saying on his program about Governor Tim Walz, saying, I don't see the impact. Did Jay-Z say he had a spark when he started, but now he's just garbage? I don't think he's garbage, meaning Tim Walz. You know what I'm saying? But it's just like, I don't see the impact. We don't need that now. We don't need you chilling, Tim Walz. Okay, we need you on the front lines, okay? We need a white man that excites other white people. I don't know if he's that white person doing that, is he? So saying that he doesn't really have an impact didn't really add anything to the ticket. Many people still critical, highly critical of Harris for not opting for Josh Shapiro, the governor of Pennsylvania, as so many have said, that the White House goes through Pennsylvania, and that's very close there, and that's why the Trump campaign has spent so much time. That's where he went to the McDonald's, he was at the football game, that's where J.D. Vance was in Williamsport last week and other Pennsylvania stops. Now, Rich Lowry, here's a couple quick things. Rich Lowry says Kamala Harris can't answer for her border disaster because there are no good answers. Now, Bill Maher saying that when she gets asked a tough question about the border, she should just own it and say, hey, listen, I wish Biden would have been more forceful at the border, but we're not going to let that happen under my administration. But Rich Lowry asked, what is she going to say? Yes, we completely screwed this up, and I regret to say, did it on purpose. I've learned my lesson, though, and want to reverse field on this issue going forward. An answer like that wouldn't be sincere, but since when has that ever been an obstacle? Since she and her team obviously believe that a confession is not in her interest, her only alternative is to deceive, obfuscate, and evade, and hope it's enough to see her through to November 5th. She tries to sound like she's always wanted to be border hawk, if only she'd been able to get her way. The first bill we proposed to Congress was to fix our broken immigration system, she said a week ago on 60 Minutes, knowing that if you want to actually fix it, we need Congress to act. It was not taken up. Every single word of this, with the possible exception of the prepositions, is misleading. The proposal was a massive amnesty bill. It was intended to fix the system only if you believe that real problem is illegal immigrants in the United States haven't yet been legalized. The bill had no meaningful border provisions, not even more Border Patrol agents. By complaining that the legislation wasn't taken up, Harris clearly wanted to create the impression that GOP obstruction stymied the bill. Yet Democrats had unified control of Congress at the time and chose to ignore the proposal because everyone understood it was an absurd non-starter. For all that Harris insists that from day one, literally, we have been offering solutions, the fact of the matter is that there is no border crisis to solve on day one because the Biden administration hadn't unraveled the Trump policies yet. So the border was secure, and we were secure as a nation on day one. So what is she exactly fixing? After roughly 3 years of an unprecedented crisis that it ignored and excused away, the White House finally decided that it needed to do something for political cover and turned to a supposedly hawkish bipartisan Senate deal on the border. After this opportunistic turnabout, Harris pretends that she's the only one who's putting politics aside for the public good and exonerates Trump for cynically opposing the bill. Never mind that the proposal blessed key aspects of an unaccepted status quo. Harris told Bret Baier that the election will determine whether we have a president of the United States who actually cares more about fixing problems, even if it is not for their political advantage in an election. This head spinning, given how she and Biden blew up the border at the outset of the administration for ideological reasons and now want to brand themselves as newly pro-enforcement for political reasons. As for her recent radicalism on the issue, Harris brushed it aside as if there was some teenage phase. I do not believe in decriminalizing border crossing, she told Bret Baier, and I have not done that as vice president. I would not do that as president. but that is a position she took a few years ago. She didn't offer any explanation for her change in thinking, presumably because there wasn't one beyond realizing that once was seemingly a passionate commitment had become a political liability. That Harris is so tinny and unpersuasive on the border is, in large part, not a product of poor communication skill. Rather, it's part and parcel of a strategic choice to try to muddy the waters instead of admitting how and why the administration created an utterly avoidable debacle. Now, Victor Davis Hanson has it this way. This election is the lecturers versus the lectured to, and voters are getting upset. The election is finally shaping up to be not only liberal Democrat Kamala Harris versus conservative Republican Donald Trump. Instead, it has become a larger contest between those who talk down to their fellow Americans and those who increasingly are sick and tired of being lectured. How smart is it, for example, for Harris supporters to claim nonstop that ex-President Trump is a fascist dictator, and thus, by extension, those also who vote for him would be fascist? Women voters poll around 55% for Harris. Trump enjoys a similar, although likely somewhat smaller, majority margin of male voters. Yet Harris, along with campaign surrogates Barack Obama and Bill Clinton, have been lecturing both black and white male voters nonstop that they are misled, or they supposedly suffer from false consciousness, as if they have no clue that Harris and her progressive agenda are really in their own self-interest. It's reached its zenith when Harris allies ran ads of actors costumed as supposed working-class men. They voiced scripted talking points to prove that real men are progressive Harris supporters. But the actors were so patently ridiculous, their canned lines so unreal, that most viewers likely thought the ads were run by Trump himself to show how arrogant, out-of-touch elites must imagine how the so-called clingers and deplorables think and talk. The Trump campaign also tries all sorts of strategies to win over women voters, from promising to rectify the Biden-Harris hyperinflation to reducing spiraling crime in towns and cities. But one method that they avoid is claiming women are ignorant of their real self-interest and deluded by Harris, accurately assuming that a candidate does not win voters by belittling their intelligence. Harris and Obama both dressed down black men, claiming they're especially culpable for not voting en masse for Harris, even though a far higher percentage of black males will vote for Harris than for Trump. This hectoring the electorate on its supposed ignorance or moral shortcomings has become a Harris campaign trademark. But I would argue it's not just Harris. I would say this is a common theme going back to, as we mentioned with the deplorables, with Hillary, with Obama and the bitter clingers, to Harris objecting to 10 to 12 million foreign nationals entering the country illegally without background checks during the Biden-Harris administration is supposedly a sign of a lack of compassion, and claiming that a current declining rate of illegal immigration should allay voters' supposed paranoias utterly ignores the millions of illegal aliens who were all but welcomed in by the Biden-Harris campaign or White House before the 2024 election cycle. Voters are also talked down to ad nauseum that they do not appreciate the Biden-Harris economy given the rate of inflation is falling. True, most voters go shopping in a manner politicians do not. So they resent such top-down sermons. They resent such top-down sermons. They know best that prices for staple foods, fuel, insurance, and housing have spiked by some 20% to 30% since 2021 and have stayed astronomically high. Currently, the auto industry is in crisis. Its huge inventory of electric vehicles sits unwanted and unsold. Harris and the left, remember, mandated all sorts of EV standards. Now, we're not going to go through all this, but the idea that they are constantly lecturing the voter that you're not smart enough to understand that the economy is actually really doing good, that Harris is really the only one that's doing anything on the border, et cetera, et cetera. This may be October 1980 teachable moment, he says. Then a preachy and sanctimonious incumbent, Jimmy Carter, ahead in the final October polls over challenger Ronald Reagan, finally turned off voters for good. The one-time underdog, Reagan won in a landslide for a variety of reasons. But certainly one explanation was that the electorate had finally collectively shrugged off their weariness. They were sick and tired of Carter's downer lectures about how they were wrong and culpable. Reagan, however, reminded voters that America was better than all the alternatives needed not to be perfect to be good and had nothing to apologize for. The same contrast will likely determine the election in 2024. So are you getting sick of being lectured about not understanding about public safety? Nope, never mind the issues we've seen with our own eyes. We got to believe their stats. Same with inflation, same with costs. But we got to take a short break because coming up, we're going to be talking with our friend Paul Andrews, the Director of Recruitment and Admissions at SUNY CCC. So stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox will be right back.
Ranger 1000 is equipped for whatever comes your way. If you have the know-how to take on what comes, the new Ranger 1000 delivers what you need to make short work of it.
Ithaca Recreation Sports, Route 13 in Newfield. Get outside and ride.
Trick or Treat is here, and Big Fox TV has some tips to keep our kids safe. Wear bright, reflective, flame-resistant costumes and remove any tripping hazards. Travel in groups and review traffic safety. Check outdoor lights and carry a flashlight. Never go into a house or car for candy, and let your parents check your treats. This reminder is brought to you by your caring friends at Tom's South Corning Collision, Cutler's Carpet and Flooring, Shedden's Wholesale, Suburban Propane, and Big Fox TV.
During high school, I hung with the wrong crowd and I never graduated.
I helped Santiago in many different ways, like all fathers do, because he always wanted to go to college.
I felt a little embarrassed to come back to school, but eventually, once I came here, I knew that it's for a bigger goal.
He was very dedicated, hardworking. He connected with his teachers, he connected with other students. That was one of the key reasons why he was able to keep forging ahead.
It was amazing to see him graduate. This was one thing that meant so much to him, and of course, it meant so much to us too.
With the help of my father and having my son, that was all the motivation that I needed. That support is everything.
Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org.
Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Hagan. We're broadcasting from the Hesselson studio, and joining me in that studio this morning is Paul Andrews, the Director of Recruitment and Admissions for CCC. Thanks so much for being on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it, Frank.
Now, you've got the fall open house coming up on October 26th. That's from 9 to noon. We want to learn all about it. But let's start with, for those watching, who's this for?
Well, really anyone who's looking to attend, while we're looking at individuals who might be interested in attending college, regardless of whether they're transitioning right out of high school,
okay,
or whether they're a returning adult student who maybe been out in the workforce and are looking to continue their education.
Okay.
We also invite alums who might be interested in just coming up to visit, take a look around, and revisit SUNY Corning Community College.
Well, what intrigues me is because it's been a while since I've been to SUNY Corning Community College. It would be nice for the tour aspect of it to see, because you guys are always adapting and always changing. Think that naturally, right? So some people it might be a lot different looking than the last time I looked at it 20 years ago.
Yeah, certainly there have been updates and renovations that have occurred on campus since that time,
yes,
and within recent years. And really what the showcase of the tour is, it allows individuals who maybe have not been to campus or are looking to see what SUNY Corning Community College is all about.
Right.
And it's a beautiful campus.
Yes.
It's great to be able to take that brief hour walk around campus and be able to experience everything that's there. We'll have some demonstrations that are going to be set up. We'll hit some key areas such as the brand new makerspace that's available on campus. We also have the Learning Commons in the library. As well as we'll visit the athletics fields and some of the other opportunities that are available on campus.
So you really get to see everything as SUNY CCC.
Absolutely.
And I think this is unique, and maybe an opportunity I can't think of even when I'm with the Mansfielder, where you get to talk to the faculty and you get to talk to the staff and really see if Corning CCC or SUNY CCC is for you.
That's absolutely the case.
Yeah.
It's we have several different opportunities. The tours will actually be at 9, 10:30, and noon.
Okay.
Those will be that experience that I was talking about, that hour walk around campus. It'll be a guided tour by some of our staff as well as our faculty. Following that, we'll actually have, and throughout the day, we'll have information tables that are going to be available. So that'll be from 9 o'clock to noon.
Okay.
And the focus of those is really having an opportunity to be able to speak with representatives from the academic program areas, find out more about that program. Maybe you have some questions in regards to 2 or 3 different programs you might be considering. Well, having that opportunity to visit on campus and be able to get those answers, or bring your questions with you and be able to get answers to those, is really one of the primary focuses of this event.
Yeah, because I think the biggest issue that people talk about or think about maybe when they think about college is finances. Right, and you're going to make that easy on people to find out more, and what can be a really difficult conversation to have because you don't know. A lot of people just don't know about that process.
That's absolutely right, and we're proud to be offering an 11 o'clock presentation on that day that the Financial Aid Office will be presenting, and that'll be in the Triangle Lounge and allow us to be able to really answer the questions people are bringing to the table, but with some of the changes that have occurred with the FAFSA over the last few years, being able to highlight those changes and really get an opportunity to make people feel a little bit more comfortable with what that financial aid process is.
And there's also a couple of things on here, just looking at the kind of the agenda of some of the things that you're offering. This is all very informative. It's always all very important if you're thinking about attending. But there's a couple of things that I would deem as a little fun in there too. But it's all fun, but extra fun, I should put it that way, such as the Digital Dome Show.
That's absolutely right. The Digital Dome is a renovation that has occurred over the last couple of years, and now is a 360-degree theater environment that is incredible, is used for a lot of different purposes on campus, and certainly is a treasure that the community could come up and experience for free on that day.
Yeah, and then is this right, and correct me if I'm wrong, from 11 to 1:30, the men's basketball scrimmage?
That's absolutely right.
You're going to make them go out there and play for 2.5 hours?
There'll be some break in between as they're transitioning through, but that is certainly one of the opportunities that will be available for individuals to engage. Whether they're looking to participate in NJCAA athletics at SUNY Corning, or whether they are
basketball fans,
a basketball fan or a diehard fan in general of sports, those opportunities will be available.
This is, I was going to originally say something to the extent, just so people knew that it's 9 to noon, but you don't have to stay the whole time. But looking at some of this, I could see where people do just stay the whole time.
Yeah, I mean, one of the great things about the format that we've put together here is it really is all about giving the student and the parents and the guests an opportunity to be able to build the day for the experience that they're looking to have. Because at SUNY Corning, their experience matters.
Yeah.
So we're trying to do that right from their first interaction at an open house, to be able to say, you can be here for that hour tour and get everything that you might need.
Sure.
You can be there for the entire 3 hours.
Yeah.
You could be there for a 45-minute session for financial aid, or really building it out to fit into your time frame. And be flexible with it.
Well, and that's what I like, because, and I want to stress this point, you can go for the financial aid or to talk about that, or you can go to see, whatever the case may be, a presentation, but you don't have to go to any of these. Right? I mean, I don't have to go to the men's basketball game if I don't want to. I want to, but it's you're catering it to the individual and what they think is most important.
That is the primary focus.
Yeah,
is allowing someone to have their experience and build it out, and like you said, really get what it is that they need from that day.
Yeah,
and not try to put them into a specific configuration that takes 3 hours.
Well, that's what I mean, because I remember when I went to college, it seems like the things like this that you went to, you're stuck at presentations that maybe you didn't want to go to. It was a pretty rigid, and now this is something I would have been interested in at the time, saying I don't need this, but I do need this. So I think it's a great idea. Have you been doing this for a long time, the fall open houses?
We've been doing them. This is probably the second year that we've actually done it in a format similar to this, where we opened up the flexibility.
Yeah.
It really, from a staff and a faculty standpoint, it allows the time that's being spent there to really hit home with the students and have an exchange with the students, as opposed to some other formats where they might be spread out throughout campus. Those information tables are all in the commons. So you've got one spot where you can go and get all those services. I should also point out that we will have financial aid there. We'll have the learning commons. We'll have information tables, accessibility services. So if those are the types of services that you're looking to connect with, or that you have questions for, we certainly will have them available. Perry Hall for on-campus housing will have information there as well, and they'll also be part of the tour.
And you know what I was just thinking, you had mentioned that alumni could come up to just get the tour, but we should notice, the bookstore is open with a 20% discount on that day.
They are open.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a great experience. They've got a lot of SUNY CCC branded material.
Yes, that's what the 20% off is. Yes,
exactly.
Yeah. I didn't mean to overstep it. All of a sudden, everything's off. I'm not Oprah here. I'm not giving away things for free. But yes, I think that's worth noting for alumni. So before we go, just a couple quick questions. Should people bring anything with them?
Well, as we've indicated a few times in this conversation, bringing questions with them.
Yes.
So that they can get answers to those.
Mm-hmm.
The few of the other key things is that the primary location to come to on campus is going to be the Commons building.
Okay.
So the easiest way to do that is to actually go to parking lot C on campus upon arrival, and then go to the Commons building from there.
Okay, and that's again from 9 to noon on October the 26th, the fall open house for SUNY CCC. Should people register at a time?
We encourage people to register, but they don't have to register.
Okay.
We will have walk-ins that'll show up, and we certainly will accommodate them and give them a great experience. We would encourage individuals to register, and that would be at corning-cc.edu/open-house.
And you can find out more information there if we didn't cover it. Well, Paul, thanks so much for being on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Good luck with the open house.
Appreciate it.
All right. Well, you want to play some basketball? All right. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking. Stay with us.
If you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call today.
Wow, you found it.
I did.
The History of Water Part 6? I've been dying to read this.
I know, honey.
I always wanted that book.
At Culligan, we get that most people don't think about water like we do, and that's okay. You see, when we install one of our high-efficiency water softeners, we're thinking about hard water and limescale buildup, so you can just think about longer-lasting appliances and softer skin and hair. At Culligan, we think about your water, so you don't have to.
Call today to schedule your free water test.
When we have the food we need, we are at our best. We push further. We rise higher. We unlock our full potential. When we are at our best, we have more to offer the world around us. When we have the food we need, we make our communities stronger. Together, we can help everyone get the food they need to thrive. Join the movement to end hunger at feedingamerica.org/actnow.
I'm Nancy O'Dell. This is Crime Expose.
It's chilling, it's haunting.
We knew exactly who it was.
Blood stains on her shorts.
See you in September.
The Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact Boss Security for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. I am your host, Frank Aiken. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. A couple quick comments from viewers. So your man, Slump, okay, I guess that's the new nickname, spends a half an hour talking about Arnold Palmer. I'm not going to get into specifics, but you saw that for yourself this weekend. And also made the claim, I love women. The whole time, there's a young girl behind him while the crowd laughs at him. Who are the folks that still support Trump? We know how immoral he is. And you? What are your thoughts on his latest regurgitated lunch coming out as his presidential speech? Oh, wow. There's so many things to dissect there. But let's go to a different comment. Well, the one I would say is I don't know what speech you're referring to, so I can't speak to that specifically. I know there has been some pushback about the Arnold Palmer a story that he told. I understand that. But a different comment from a different viewer. Is it possible to write a statement on the ballot? Like, for example, if you feel you were better off 4 years ago than you are now, vote Republican. Along this line, who is responsible for the layout, the nomenclature of a ballot? Just curious. No, I mean, no. There's no, you're not allowed to campaign in the voting area. You've seen the signs where the last spot, like you're not even supposed to wear like a Trump pin in or a Harris pin or a hat or anything like that. So no, you couldn't just write that on a bunch of them. I'm sure that when it comes to the layout, I would assume that's from the legislature, or not the legislature, excuse me, from the Assembly or the Senate in New York State, the layout of who the name. And I know the Board of Elections, when it's local races, will have like a contest or a flip a coin to see who is listed first in certain races and what, like that kind of layout. So I'm sure it's a Board of Elections kind of a behind the scenes layout. But no, you can't just go around and write on people's ballots or even your own. If you do that, I don't think it would probably take the ballot at that point. I mean, you can write in a candidate, obviously, if that's what you want. But if you do that specifically, I think it would invalidate the vote. But thank you for that question. How am I doing on time? Oh, yes, we were talking about Trump working as a fry cook at McDonald's. Donald Trump is really cooking in the race for president, says New York Post. Wearing an apron and a red tie, the former president served up some fries in political shade against his rival during a behind-the-counter stint at McDonald's on Sunday, which drew a monster crowd. Yeah, that was a crazy crowd when they showed a picture of it. I know Trump kept saying 10,000, but I think they estimated about 6,000. McDonald's has long been one of Trump's favorite chains. He made that perfectly clear throughout his whole tenure as president, but also while he was at the cooking the fries. This doubled as an effort to re-up his doubts over Vice President Harris's claim that she worked at McDonald's in the 80s. I'll tell you what, it's a great franchise. It's a great company. Look at the crowd over there. Look at how happy everyone is. They're happy because they want hope, he said. I've now worked for 15 minutes more than Kamala in what his campaign dubbed the October surprise. Trump worked the counter and bantered with customers who drove up. His campaign also released footage of him jubilantly preparing the Happy Meals. It was clear they were loving it. We got the salt on it. Never touches a human hand. Nice and full. Yes, he did. Used a lot of salt. That second batch, which wasn't as drained, and quite a bit of salt. One man who waited in line for a meal said, "I'll just take whatever he gives me." Love him or hate him, I just feel it's really cool to see this moment in history, said Caitlin Hamlin, a 33-year-old hairdresser who is wearing a pink MAGA hat. It's a really cool moment, but I obviously support him. Mr. President, thank you for taking a bullet for us, said one supporter. Wow, thank you, Mr. President. You made it possible for ordinary people like us to meet you. Trump seemed to enjoy the McFlurry of activity and quipped, "I like this job." He said he would be eager to come back and do it again. He also handed out fries to members of the press stationed outside the drive-thru window. That's sort of a bribe, but a fry for $1 is okay. Somebody come up here and take them. Harris, 60, has reportedly maintained that she worked in the fast food joint while studying to be an undergrad and used the tale to highlight her middle-class roots, seeking to juxtapose it with her billionaire foe. Her campaign has specified that she worked the cash register, fry station, and ice cream machine at a McDonald's on Central Avenue in Alameda, California in 1983, during the summer between her freshman and sophomore year at Howard. Part of the reason I even talk about having worked at McDonald's is because there are people who work at McDonald's in our country who are trying to raise a family. I worked there as a student, she said at the time. What were your thoughts overall? At one point someone had told the president, I think it was someone in the fast food line saying that was Harris's birthday. He said, "Happy birthday, Kamala. She's turning 60. I think I'll get her some flowers. Maybe I'll get her some fries. I'll get her a McDonald's hamburger. Happy birthday, Kamala." That's when he turned around and said, "This is a really strange place to do a news conference." Now, this really upset, if you will, Tim Walz, taking to Twitter or X saying this guy, meaning Trump, spent decades stiffing workers' pay, cut overtime benefits for millions of people, and opposed any effort to raise the minimum wage. You know who has actually worked at McDonald's, joined workers on picket lines, and fights for working people? Kamala Harris. I thought one of the really interesting takeaways was when the one person came to the drive-thru and said, "Mr. President, please don't let the United States become Brazil, my native Brazil." I thought that was an interesting statement. One person saying, or one family saying that they were praying for the president. "Thank you, Mr. President. You make it possible for ordinary people like us to meet you. Thank you so much for everything you are doing. We pray for you, and you are the type of person we want to be the president." All right. Now, on MSNBC, they specifically, the host on MSNBC and Democrat Representative Barbara Lee slammed Trump for this McDonald's visit. He has gone to a McDonald's. He's going to this McDonald's, and he's in the Philadelphia area. He's going to work a fryer, apparently before he goes to the Steelers versus Jets game. If you're on his campaign, and I know you're certainly not, I'm not making any implications of that. But what is the logic behind going to a McDonald's? We added that Trump likes Big Mac and filet of fish from McDonald's and continue to question the logic. There is no logic to it. It's a stunt. He has not put forth an economic agenda. He, as you know, appears to be not well. And he's engaged in some really bizarre types of activities during his campaign. So this is just another one of those stunts that he will continue on through the campaign. And I think we really need to really focus on making sure that he is not elected, of course. That's Barbara Lee, Democrat from California. I mean, of course there's an upside to this. Well, number one, meeting with voters, actually getting out in the public, having kind of a different fun type activity in that case. And I like now that they're continuing to push, and they're doing it on Saturday Night Live, they're doing it elsewhere. He's mentally unfit. It's hard to take them seriously after 3.5 years of calling us horrible names if we question Biden's mental health. But J.D. Vance, he didn't let Trump be the only one having fun handing out stuff. He was pouring beers for Green Bay Packers fans at a Wisconsin bar. We're excited to present a Packers game day jersey for the future Vice President of the United States, J.D. Vance, said the Wisconsin Young Republicans. While he visited, there's photos of it online. He was pouring beers for Green Bay Packers fans. Vance had been greeting Packers fans gathered at Kroll's West, a bar and grill. According to a video posted on X, the crowd could be heard cheering and shouting, "J.D. Vance, J.D. Vance." Now I got to take a break. We'll be right back, frankly speaking, here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, stay with us.
If you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call today.
Frankly Speaking Roof Cam is brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact Boss Security for all your business and home security needs.
Wanna know why it's hard to stop a train? It's how we've invented products that reinvented our world. It's how we test as hard as the elements do. It's how we run.
Aaron's Heating and Air Conditioning in Corning, New York is a local, veteran-owned and operated company with over 25 years experience. From service and repair to new installations. Trust the experts at Aaron's Heating and Air Conditioning.
Should be electric today. The crowd, the atmosphere, this is what makes it special.
Here we go.
This is what we do. Sensational.
Big Noon Kickoff, Saturday.
The Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact Boss Security for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking as we broadcast live from the Hesselson's studio. Comment from a viewer, "Go Pack, go!" in reference to J.D. Vance pouring beers for Green Bay Packers fans. Also on the football front, former Steeler Antonio Brown and LaVon Bell registered Trump voters in Pittsburgh. The two players were seen wearing Make America Great Again hats under a Turning Point USA action tent, registering voters in Pittsburgh, many of whom were proud Steelers fans. The voter registration drive occurred just one day after Antonio Brown and LaVon Bell appeared at a Trump rally in Pennsylvania, where the former president touted fracking. Former All-Pro running back and one-time New York Jet, LaVon Bell, and controversial ex-wide receiver Antonio Brown both got on stage at the campaign event at Arnold Palmer Regional Airport to voice their approval for the GOP presidential nominee. Brown, clad in a red MAGA hat, got on the microphone and said, "Let's vote for Trump. Let's make some noise for the president." Brown could be heard on the mic telling Trump that he loved him. "Let's go, Trump. You already know, vote Trump. Let's go." And they were handing out Trump fans rally towels to Steelers fans at the game. The former president was in attendance at the Steelers-Jets game, and Brown, who took the stage for a speech on Saturday where he mocked the Democrat candidates nominee Kamala Harris and running mate Tim Walz, continued to show his love for Trump and his running mate J.D. Vance with terrible towels featuring their names on it with the election less than a month away. Brown was wearing a black hat. They had Trump's signature "Make America Great Again" slogan across it, which comes after he wore a similar red hat at that rally. Trump received a thunderous welcome at Pittsburgh when he was at the game with people chanting "USA, USA." Trump can be seen waving at the crowd and making the fight, fight, fight gesture to the crowd. So a big, thunderous welcome at the Pittsburgh Steelers game for former President Trump. But now, as it nears Election Day, boy, we are running out of time. Dems are so fearful that they're now in the Trump is worse than Hitler stage as the Election Day nears, according to Miranda Devine. We are now the Trump is worse than Hitler stage of the Kamala Harris campaign with just over 2 weeks until Election Day. 2 weeks tomorrow. That's the word from the Atlantic magazine, where CIA cipher Ann Applebaum wrote another hilariously anti-Trump diatribe last week titled "Trump is speaking like Hitler, Stalin, and Mussolini." The Atlantic has dedicated itself to destroying Donald Trump and all his work since it was bought by Lawrence Jobs, the billionaire widow of Apple founder Steve Jobs, who just happens to be one of VP Kamala Harris's best friends and who helped mobilize fellow Democrat donors to topple Joe Biden after his disastrous debate performance in June. But like so many Trump derangement operations, Jobs' efforts are falling flat. Joy has vanished from the Harris campaign. Fear is in its place. Fear that the Democrats might lose the election to that dreaded Trump. You can find the full piece by Miranda Devine at the New York Post, but they are in that phase. Hyperventilating Democrats like Josh Shapiro want to sick law enforcement onto Elon Musk. Have you seen this? Elon Musk was doing $1 million giveaway to randomly chosen Pennsylvania voters who sign a petition upholding the constitutional rights to free speech and to bear arms. Quote, "When you start flowing this kind of money into politics, it raises serious questions," Shapiro said. "It's something that law enforcement could take a look at." Think of the hypocrisy. Did Democrats cry foul that Mark Zuckerberg for Meta gave $400 million giveaways for get-out-the-vote operations in overwhelmingly Democrat areas before the 2020 election? Nope. And they called anyone who complained about that money an election denier. We do have to take another short break. I forgot to thank Paul Andrews, our guest, the director of recruitment and admissions at SUNY Corning Community College, telling us all about that open house on October 26th from 9 to 12. And I will say 9 to noon. And I will say that is also just happens to be the first day of early voting in New York. We're going to go through some things very quickly, wrapping up today's edition of Frankly Speaking. We've covered a lot, not just on the campaigns. We talked about Prop 1 here in New York. We talked about Hochul. We've covered a lot. So get your last-minute comments in, and we'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, stay with us.
In honor of Breast Cancer Awareness Month, our blue logo is going pink. For those who've won their fight against cancer, we salute you. For those still fighting, we support you. And for those who would like to help, go to WilliamAttar.com. At William Attar, we've helped thousands in our community after a crash with serious injuries. You know us, you know our focus, and you know we can help. Call the firm with the focus, the firm with the fours. 444-4444.
Isn't your wellness important? Don't you want more energy? Now's the best time to make every day better and relieve those achy muscles and pains than with a Hesselson's Hot Tub. Hesselson's has hot tubs in stock and available for immediate delivery with unbelievable savings. Hesselson's offers 0% interest-free financing for up to 5 full years. Hesselson's carries the only hot tub brand in the industry with the exclusive freshwater salt system that is eco-friendly and easy to use and only enhances your hot tubbing experience. Come in today and see why your next hot tub should be a Hesselson's hot tub. And remember, it's always fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.
And we are back. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam is brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact Boss Security for all your business and home security needs. What a beautiful view this morning from historic Market Street as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio, tying in with what Miranda Devine had to say, that it's the part of the election cycle. Well, it's been pretty much nonstop, but we're in that part of the election cycle where it's Trump is worse than Hitler stage. Gavin Newsom saying on Sundays inside on MSNBC, saying, I said this from day one. He is weakness, meaning Trump, masquerading as strength. He's a broken person. You are seeing that. He's becoming increasingly, this is remarkable to be able to say this because he is often graded on the curve, and he is increasingly acting deranged and unhinged. That seems to be the word of the day, unhinged, that they're using a lot. The rhetoric coming from the Harris campaign absolutely mimics what we are watching. And you saw that 39-minute curious narcissism on another level, where people had to sort of stare at dear leader as he was dancing or zoning out. I mean, this is a profound and remarkable moment. I know it's a loaded word, but when you say you're going to be a dictator on day one, I mean, look up the definition of fascism, the characteristics of a dictator and authoritarian. I don't think it's overstating, but I deeply recognize that those are loaded words. When you use words like fascism, it turns some people off. But again, by definition, I think that is a fair assessment from the Vice President and General Milley. Now, financial guru Dave Ramsey, he made his political endorsement, his presidential endorsement. Financial whiz and radio host Dave Ramsey announced on his show that he intends to vote for former President Donald Trump, and then dared anyone who didn't like his decision to just try and cancel him. Quote, I'm looking at ideas at which idea lands on which side of the aisle. So I'm going to tell you, I'm voting for Donald Trump because I check those boxes, and more of them are on that side than the other. Where am I most likely to get a tax policy that I like? Where am I most likely to get an immigration policy I like? Where am I most likely to get a foreign policy I like? Where am I most likely to get a gun policy I like, a climate change policy I like, a woke policy I like that I agree with? And so I can check those boxes very clearly, very quickly on those two candidates. So I'm going to tell you I'm voting for Donald Trump because I check those boxes, and more of them are on the one side than the other. The 64-year-old radio host has previously described himself as a fiscal conservative and said that he's a Christian. At times on his show, he has decried what he considers to be too much government involvement in the economy and suggested that presidents should have minimal intervention in it. Yes, I mentioned Elon Musk. They're suggesting that he is breaking the law with a $1 million giveaway to a number of registered voters in Pennsylvania and other swing states who signed the PAC's petition. At a rally, he said to be eligible, both the referrer and the petition signer must be registered voters of Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, or Wisconsin. Now, they're suggesting, UCLA law professor Rick Hansen is saying there may be some of the other things Musk was doing here were a murky legality. This one is clearly illegal. Now he has upgraded, Elon Musk has upgraded his security after a left-wing magazine labels him public enemy number 2. He noted he was recently on the cover of Der Spiegel, which labeled him public enemy number 2, the first being Trump. I'm like enemy number 2 or what? Democracy? I mean, I'm pro-democracy. I'm literally trying to uphold the Constitution and ensure we have a free and fair election. I'm definitely upgrading my security. Guess I better cancel that open car parade, seemingly a nod to the 1963 assassination of President John F. Kennedy. The SpaceX CEO said he was a little shocked by the level of vitriolic hatred on the left. They claim they're tolerant, and yet they're incredibly intolerant and spewing hate. Whereas on the right, I see people who tend to regard people on the left as well misguided, but they don't hate them. But the amount of hate coming from the left is like, wow, next level. He said at that rally. We are out of time for today's edition of Frankly Speaking. Thank you to everybody who joined us. Thanks for everyone who commented. We are out of time, though. Make sure you join us tomorrow. We'll be talking about the Days of Incandescence here on Market Street, which is coming up in just a few days. We'll hear all about that. That's on tomorrow's program. Then we have candidates on, I believe, the rest of the week, sometimes 2 per show. So tune in every weekday morning starting at 6 a.m. for Frankly Speaking, only on WYDC TV, Big Fox. We will see you tomorrow morning, bright and early. I look forward to it already.